We've heard from China, Roland. We've also heard from Hong Kong lawmakers. What now are the reactions from the people in Hong Kong to these developments out of Beijing?
Well, we've also had former Chief Executive C.Y. Leong saying that the law doesn't impinge on foreign investments or the freedoms of local residents. And this is what Hong Kong needs to do. Legislative Council President Andrew Leong also saying that he respects and understands and supports Beijing's decision on this new legislation. Mr. Leong dismissed concerns that the intervention marked the end of one country, two systems, as Beijing is circumventing the Legislative Council to actually implement national security laws, adding that the NPC was using their constitutional power in response to the situation here on the ground. The pro-Beijing Federation of Trade Unions also applauding Beijing's move, saying that it was timely, given that it says the growth of separatism and foreign interference here in the city. But we've also had principal lecturers like at the University of Hong Kong, law department, Eric Cheung, saying that it is essentially declaring that the one country, two systems model has failed and that they think that the basic law cannot improve the current situation, so they need to actually find another way to handle the issue. He was also deeply concerned about what will almost certainly be the erosion of people's rights and freedoms here. Civic Party lawmaker Tanya Chen, she's the convener of the opposition camp in Lechko. She's urging the public to express their views by taking part in the upcoming Legislative Council elections. Remember, Hong Kong heading for elections of the Lechko in September, and if last year's success for the pro-democracy parties in the local district elections is repeated, well, then government bills could be blocked by a majority in the pan-democratic camp. But let's not forget, what we know so far, though, is that according to the national security legislation, China's parliament will empower itself to set up legal framework and implement mechanisms to prevent and punish secession, subversion, separatism, and foreign interference. Now, this is a narrower legal framework than the original Article 23 bill, which was introduced. And Beijing says that Hong Kong still needs to enact Article 23 of the Basic Law as soon as possible. That would make it also punishable, things like theft of state secrets, and to prohibit foreign political organizations from conducting political activities here. But the main takeaway from the new resolution will be, one, the mainland will be free to set up agencies here, bases in the SAR, including, some worry, the secret police branch of China to tackle terrorism in the city. Remember, right now, under the Basic Law, law enforcement in Hong Kong rests with the Hong Kong government, and mainland agencies cannot operate in the SAR without the local government's permission. Opposition lawmakers warn that this could result in random arrests, unlimited custody, or even torture of suspects. And number two, now apart from calling for a speedy implementation of Article 23, Beijing is also calling on the administrative, the legislature, and the judicial pillar, the courts of Hong Kong, to prevent and punish any harm to national security. Mrs. Carrie Lam also has to promote and push for national security education, like you say, and then hand in regular reports to the central government on a regular basis. National People's Congress Vice Chairman Wang Chen said that the SAR government has failed to bring in national security legislation under Article 23, and the issue has been demonized. Now, he said there is a risk that the matter has stalled for a very long time and it'll drag on, Beijing showing a loss of patience, and that the risks to national security have been brought clearly into the focus since the social unrest that broke out in Hong Kong last year. Pro-democracy activists say that the protests are a manifestation, really, of the unhappiness over interference in the city and that Hong Kong's government's mishandling of the extradition bill. But Beijing is insistent that foreign forces were behind last year's violent unrest.
The calls are out there. Activists are already calling for more protests. But with this new security law, does that add another layer of urgency to these protests that they might actually become bigger and even more violent than before?
Yes, the Civil Human Rights Front, which organized some of Hong Kong's biggest protests last year, says it's a difficult time to initiate any mass rallies. Remember, safe distancing rules are still in place because of COVID-19. But it told its supporters that it hopes to announce its actions soon. But we've already had calls on social media, like Reddit-like forum sites like LIHKG and messaging app Telegram, for demonstrations to take place. Now, many are already proposing a march in Causeway Bay, that's the city's core shopping district, on Sunday. And for protesters also to surround the Legislative Council building on Wednesday, May 27th, when the National Anthem Bill is voted on in the legislature. Remember, anyone, according to that bill, found guilty of misusing, insulting the march of volunteers would face a fine of up to $6,400 or 3 years in prison. And let's not forget also, the first week of June marks the anniversary of the anti-extradition protests that plunged the city into more than 7 months of chaos. And then, of course, on Thursday evening, just yesterday, a small group of protesters already shouting slogans in support of anti-government movements at Times Square and Causeway Bay, just as the news of the national security laws was spreading across the city. And we are seeing smaller protests across the city, mostly in shopping malls. They've erupted last month, partly because of the arrest of the 15 democracy leaders for unlawful assembly. So protesters against Hong Kong's now withdrawn bill has morphed into an anti-government movement. Some demonstrators have turned away from peaceful activities to engage in violent actions. We've seen the throwing of petrol bombs, we've seen attacking of facilities, burning and the stamping on of the national flag. So all eyes will be on Beijing this week and next for the two meetings in session, but the focus will definitely be shifting to Hong Kong come early June.
Indeed, Roland, thank you as always for the update, keeping a very close eye on those multiple developments in Hong Kong.